We're now going to see a few examples of the three conditional types we learned about in the previous tutorial. It's important to understand how to implement each of these and when it's appropriate to use each type. The last thing we worked on was our exercise code file. If you haven't closed that file yet, make sure you do. Now let's all open up our Lab Master source code and continue on with our lessons on using conditionals. The first one we're going to look at is typically the easiest one to understand, the if-else conditional. If you remember, the last thing we did in our code was use a variable to track the status of our amplifiers in our rack. We also added a system off button on our touch panel in which we turned off the amps and reset the variable. Now we're going to expand on that. Let's scroll down to our system off code. The reason I named this button system off and not simply rack off is because this button can do much more than turn the amps in the racks off. What if, at some point, you want to turn the lights off when the system off button is pressed, or close all the window shades in the building, or turn the air conditioner off when the room has not been used? These are all valid things you might consider doing when a system off button is pressed. But what if you want to simply turn all the amplifiers off in the rack without affecting all those other systems? Scroll up a bit. This is where the rack power button comes into play. Right now, the only thing this button does is turn on the amps in the rack. But why can't this button do two things? Using conditionals, we can use this button as a toggle. Basically, we can check the current state of amps, and if they're on, we'll turn them off, and if they're off, we'll turn them on. So let's begin. No need to start from scratch. We already have the button event built that already includes all the code to turn on the amplifiers. We'll just need to add the conditional statements as well as the code to turn the amps off. First, we need to evaluate if the amps are currently off. Directly under the push statement, we'll add an if statement. Inside of parentheses, we'll place the conditional statement, in this case, namp power status. There are a few different ways to write this. The first way is to write namp power status, followed by the double equal signs 0. Remember, the double equal sign is an evaluation, so in this case, the statement reads, if the amps are off, then do something. Another possible method of writing this is using the not operator. We'll erase the double equal sign and the 0. Instead, I'll add the not operator, represented by an exclamation mark, in front of the variable. This too reads, if the amps are off, then do something. When using this method, the not operator will only work if the value of the variable is 0. If you remove the not operator, the statement is then asking if the variable has any value other than 0. That means it doesn't matter if the variable is set to 1, 26 or -5. If it is anything but 0, it's true. I'll add the not operator back in because for this block of code, we are in fact checking to see if the amps are indeed off. We'll add a set of braces inside the if statement, and then indent all the code that's already there to turn the amps on. Okay, we're halfway there. If the amps are off, turn them on. The next part is to turn the amps off if they are on. All we need to do is add the else statement. Once again, open a set of braces. Add the code to turn the amps off. Since I already have this code in our system off button event, I'll just copy and paste it into my else statement. Be sure to get the variable in there as well. This is what will set the amp power status variable to an off state. That's it. Now this one button on our touch panel will turn the amps on if they are off, and it will turn them off if they are on. We just added quite a bit of code. Let's compile and make sure we don't have any syntax errors. If you do, don't move on until you get those fixed. Next up, we'll look at implementing a select active conditional.